I
Yes.
guess no one teaches us, the business and publishing and splits and then no one just
Purposefully.
says, "Hey, why don't you guys?" No one comes to you says, "Carl, okay, you know what? It might be you can still take the lead on stuff, but if everyone sort of chips in and they feel that they own it, then it might actually be a more successful." So no one comes and has that conversation with you. It's more like,
Your lips said hello and I said hi. I knew right then you were the one.
This is not what it was. So it will not be able to replicate that kind of music. We didn't agree on the kind of music we should be making at that point.
And the Image Award goes to Shai.
If I ever fall in love.
Let me tell you, Shai's story wasn't all smooth like their vocals. We talking egos clashing, messy industry drama, and one of the most shocking group breakups you probably never saw coming. Carl Martin? He just up and dipped, leaving Shai in shambles. Fans were left like, wait, what happened? And the group? They was barely holding it together. So what went down? What made Carl walk away from the group that was on top of the world? Was it the pressure, the industry snakes, or something even deeper? Don't go nowhere, because we about to break down all the tea, the drama, and the chaos that tore Shai apart. Trust me, this story is going to have you shook. Shai came together in the early 90s on the campus of Howard University in DC, where talent and ambition ran deep. The group was made up of Carl Martin, born October 29, 1970 in Denver, Colorado, Mark Gay, born December 7, 1970 in Washington, D.C., Darnell Van Rensselaer, born May 14, 1971 in Jersey City, New Jersey, and Garfield Bright, born July 12, 1970 in Harlem, New York. Funny thing, Garfield wasn't even supposed to be part of the group. He was just cool with Darnell from their dorm days, but when a few members dropped out before a big performance, they called Garfield in. He had the voice and the vibe, and just like that, Shai was born. From the jump, their chemistry was undeniable. When they performed their original song, If I Ever Fall in Love, at a Howard variety show, the crowd was hooked. By 1992, that same track had climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, held back only by Whitney Houston's unstoppable I Will Always Love You.
Your lips said hello and I said hi. I knew right then you were the one.
The song wasn't just a hit, it became a whole mood. Their debut album of the same name dropped later that year and solidified Shai as crossover artists who could captivate both R&B and pop audiences. The world saw a polished, harmonious group that seemed like brothers. Their a cappella skills and smooth ballads had fans believing they were untouchable. But behind the harmonies and matching fits, cracks were already forming. Different personalities, personal ambitions, and outside pressures were bubbling under the surface. Shai's meteoric rise to fame was dazzling, but the storm brewing behind the scenes would soon threaten to tear it all apart. On the outside, Shai looked like four brothers with perfect harmonies. But behind the scenes, it was a whole different story. Carl Martin wasn't trying to be the next frontman. He always saw himself as a producer and songwriter. While Carl wanted to stay in the background, the other members, especially Mark and Darnell, were all about that spotlight. They wanted to shine, and that difference in ambition started causing friction.
the second album, then he didn't want to write Rain. He gave it to Brandy, but she couldn't record it, so he reluctantly gave it to SWV. That became that big hit. But he wrote less because of that sort of wedge that was in there. And I guess
Yes.
I guess no one teaches us, the business and publishing and splits, and then no one just
Purposefully.
says, "Hey, why don't you guys?" No one comes to you says, "Carl, okay, you know what? It might be you can still take the lead on stuff, but if everyone sort of chips in and they feel that they own it, then it might actually be a more successful." So no one comes and has that conversation with you. It's more like,
Then there was Garfield Bright, who aligned himself with the Nation of Islam, diving deep into a disciplined and spiritual lifestyle. Meanwhile, Carl, Mark, and Darnell were embracing the college fraternity scene, attending parties and thriving socially on campus. These contrasting lifestyles created an underlying tension that only grew as the group's fame exploded. After their debut album became a hit, the pressure was relentless. The record label wanted more hits and more appearances, leaving little time for the group to even breathe. Shai was constantly being compared to other R&B heavyweights like Jodeci and Boyz II Men, and that competition only added to the internal stress. They were celebrated for their crossover appeal, but behind the scenes, that dual identity was a lot to carry. The industry didn't make it any easier. The label was obsessed with making Shai appeal to both urban and mainstream audiences, which left the group feeling stretched thin. They started to lose touch with the sound that made them special in the first place. The polished image they presented to the world hid the cracks that were forming behind closed doors. Shai was juggling fame, personal differences, and industry expectations. And it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down.
When you're in pain, I'm in pain.
By the time Shai's second album, Blackface 1995, dropped, things behind the scenes were a mess. The label that had been all in for their debut was now a revolving door of new executives who didn't care about the group's unique sound. Instead of doubling down on what made Shai special, these new execs were more focused on mainstream hits and quick results. The support Shai had early on was gone, and the label left them to fend for themselves. Carl Martin, already disillusioned with being in the spotlight, felt the shift more than anyone. From the start, Carl wasn't about being the face of the group. His real passion was in writing and producing, but the relentless demands of fame, touring, and the constant compromises with the label wore him down. On top of that, group politics and personality clashes added even more weight. Then came the breaking point. Just before a big performance at Howard University's homecoming, Carl, Garfield, and Darnell were arrested. The charges? Possession of an illegal firearm and intent to distribute. Even though they avoided major legal consequences, the incident stained their reputation and only deepened the cracks within the group. For Carl, it was too much. In 1995, he made the decision to leave Shai, stepping away from the chaos and spotlight to focus on songwriting and production. His departure was painted as amicable, but anyone paying attention could see that years of tension had finally boiled over.
So, to answer your question, no, that made walking away easy because it wasn't a surprise. It was something I saw, predicted, felt that way the whole time. So when it was time for me to say, okay, this is not what we started anymore. It's not. It's just, it's not creatively what we started. It's the interpersonal dynamic is not what it was. Yeah, I mean, this is not what it was. So it will not be able to replicate that kind of music. We didn't agree on the kind of music we should be making at that point.
Carl, walking away was a major blow. He wasn't just another member. His vision and talent had been a cornerstone of Shai's success. Without him, the group's dynamic was shattered, and their struggles only deepened. Carl's exit marked the beginning of the end for Shai's golden era, leaving fans wondering if the group would ever recover from the chaos he left behind. When Carl Martin dipped in 1995, the ripple effect hit Shai hard. Not long after, Mark Gaye decided to bounce too. Unlike Carl, Mark's departure wasn't about music. It was about building a new life. He married the love interest from Shai's Baby I'm Yours music video and switched gears completely, diving into a career in real estate. With two of its core members gone, Shai was left scrambling to keep the ship afloat. Garfield Bright and Darnell Van Rensselaer pushed forward as a trio. But it wasn't the same. The magic they had as a quartet just couldn't be replicated. Their third album, Destiny 1999, was a major flop. It failed to chart and fans barely noticed its release. For a group that had once been on top of the R&B game, this was a clear sign they were losing their grip. Meanwhile, the music industry was evolving fast. Groups like Jodeci and Boyz II Men were dominating the charts with slick production and powerhouse vocals. Shai, known for their raw harmonies and heartfelt ballads, struggled to adapt. The industry's focus shifted to polished, high-budget acts, leaving Shai in the dust. And then there was the label drama. Frequent executive shakeups at their record company meant no one was truly invested in their success anymore. Without strong promotional support, Shai became an afterthought in a cutthroat industry. To make matters worse, their reputation took a major hit. The legal troubles from their Howard University arrest and the departures of Carl and Mark left fans wondering if the group could ever get it together. What was once seen as a promising R&B powerhouse now looked like a sinking ship. By the late 90s, Shai was barely hanging on. Their struggles to stay relevant, coupled with internal fractures and industry neglect, left them in chaos. The once unstoppable group that ruled the charts was now fighting just to survive. Fans were left asking the same question. Could Shai ever make a comeback, or was this truly the end? When Shai went from a powerful quartet to just Garfield Bright and Darnell Van Rensselaer, it seemed like the group was hanging on by a thread. But instead of giving up, Garfield and Darnell decided to rebuild. They brought in two fresh voices, Dwayne Jones and George Spencer III. These seasoned vocalists added new energy to the group, helping to restore some of the magic that Shai fans had fallen in love with.
My heart has really nothing left to say.
In 2018, Shai dropped Musically Yours, an album that revisited their timeless classics like If I Ever Fall in Love and Comforter. The project may not have lit up the charts, but it was a love letter to their fans and a reminder of their incredible harmonies and emotional depth. Beyond music, Garfield took his life in a completely different direction. He earned a PhD and became a professor at Georgia State University, proving he's not just talented in music, but in academia too. Meanwhile, Garfield and Darnell turned their focus to helping others in the industry. Together, they launched Hieroglyphics Entertainment LLC, an independent label that allows them to release their own music and mentor rising talent. Their work showed that Shai wasn't just about holding on to their past, they were building a new future on their own terms. If you're inspired by Shai's resilience and want more stories about the rise, fall, and comebacks of your favorite artists, hit that subscribe button.